How can someone say they love you and act like you never existed a month later? She told you everything you wanted to hear. You were her peace, her future, her safest place. You believed her because she made you feel like it was real. And then, just like that, she was gone. Cold, distant, already posting like she's free again. You're replaying everything, looking for the moment she started slipping away. The look in her eyes, the drop in energy, the gut feeling you ignored. And now you're stuck in it. Still grieving, still trying to make sense of how she could feel nothing. Freud had an answer. Not romantic, not comforting, but true. The mind doesn't forget pain, it buries it. She didn't move on because she's stronger. She moved on because her psyche split. You're watching someone who never processed the breakup because she didn't have to. She started emotionally detaching long before she left. She felt the fear, the discomfort, the restlessness. But instead of facing it, she redirected it. Instead of grieving, she dissociated. Instead of sitting in the loss, she disconnected from it entirely. That's not healing. That's psychological survival. Freud called it repression, the unconscious mind's way of protecting the ego from collapse. When something is too overwhelming, too painful, too inconvenient for the story we want to believe, the mind doesn't resolve it, it just pushes it under. Out of awareness, but never out of impact. So now she appears fine, unbothered. Meanwhile, you're crushed, and you think that means you lost. But what if your pain is proof that you stayed real, that you didn't shut the door on your heart just to keep your ego safe? Because the truth is, she didn't process the pain, she dodged it, and you're not grieving alone. You're just the only one who didn't lie to yourself to feel better. You think the breakup broke her, but it didn't, because she had already left before she physically walked away. What you're feeling now, the ache, the absence, the shock, she felt that months ago, silently, privately, while you were still holding her hand saying, "I love you." Freud understood this. He said mourning can happen without words, without even knowing it's happening. It happens in glances, in cold moments, in the way she stops reaching for you, even though she still sleeps beside you. But instead of confronting what was dying, she did what the ego always does when it senses pain coming. It rehearses detachment. It starts to let go quietly, to avoid the crash later. So by the time she finally said, "I need space," she was already on the other side of the loss. Not healed, just emotionally numb. You're grieving a person who already left you emotionally. You just didn't notice. You saw her distance and thought, "I'll fix it." She saw her distance and thought, "This is already over." And here's the harsh truth most men never learn. Women often process the breakup before the breakup because they've been trained to survive emotionally, to adapt, to pivot, to move on before they fall apart. You think she's strong, but it's not strength. It's preparation. She didn't move on fast. She just stopped showing it months before you did. And now, on the outside, she looks fine. But all she did was rehearse the goodbye in silence, while you kept believing it was still love. That's why your grief feels deeper, because it's fresh, it's real, it's not filtered through self-protection or denial. But that doesn't mean she didn't feel anything. It means she refused to feel it out loud. You keep thinking, if she really loved me, she'd be hurting too. And maybe she is, but you won't see it, because she won't let herself see it. Freud said the ego will do anything to avoid annihilation. When pain threatens the story we tell about ourselves, we don't confront it. We rewrite reality to survive, and that's what she did. She told herself it was mutual, that she tried everything, that it just wasn't meant to be, because if she admitted the full truth, that she left someone who loved her, that she gave up on something real, that she walked away from a man who was still holding on, it would crush her. So instead, she rewrote the script. You were too emotional, too distant, too intense, too whatever makes it easier to walk away clean. The feminine ego doesn't kill love head-on, it erodes it through narrative. And Freud would tell you that's not malicious, it's defensive. Because in a world that tells her to be unbreakable, untouchable, constantly leveling up, there's no space for grief. There's no time for regret. There's only reinvention. She doesn't sit with pain. She rebrands it. So instead of mourning, she glows up. Instead of processing, she posts. Instead of feeling the wound, she performs over it. But here's the catch. The wound doesn't go away. It just slips into the subconscious, where it becomes patterns, projections, emotional coldness, distrust of future intimacy. Freud warned us what is not brought to consciousness returns as fate. So no, she didn't outgrow the pain, she buried it. And that's why it feels like she moved on so fast, because she never sat still long enough to let it catch up to her. She didn't grieve you, she escaped you. And one day, it'll hit her. Not all at once, but in pieces, in a new relationship that falls apart in the silence between flings. In the mirror, when the story no longer holds. But by then, she won't know where the pain began, because she never let herself feel it when it was real. You're still in it. Still waking up with that weight in your chest. Still checking her profile like it holds the answers. Still thinking maybe, just maybe, she'll come back. And she's out living. Laughing, moving on. You ask yourself the question every man asks in this moment. Why does this hurt me more than it hurts her? The truth? Because you loved her with your identity, not just your heart. You made her your peace, your purpose, your future. You saw her, not as an experience, but as home. And now that home is gone, and you're the only one still standing in the ruins. Freud would say you're not weak, you're just not in denial. Because while she was managing her pain through detachment, you were present with it. You felt it. You held the loss in your body and let it hollow you out. That's why it burns. Not because you're broken, but because you refused to escape. She seemed to let go easily because her subconscious did it for her. It protected her, redirected her energy into rationalizations, reinventions, rebounds. But you stayed in the wreckage, and that's why you're growing, because grief is transformation, and repression is stagnation. She left the relationship by forgetting, you stayed by remembering. She detached, you integrated. And even though it feels like she's ahead, she's not. She just avoided the fire. But one day, it'll come for her too, because no one outruns what they didn't face. Freud taught the psyche demands reckoning, and when it's ignored, it will erupt later, in distrust, anxiety, numbness, in emotional patterns that make real love impossible. So yes, you're still hurting, because you stayed loyal to the truth. And in the end, that truth will give you something she won't have for a long time. Peace. You see her now, unbothered, polished, reborn. She's smiling, traveling, posting, like she was never broken at all. And you think, she won. But what if what you see as power is just denial in disguise? She doesn't cry because she can't. She doesn't text you because she won't. She doesn't break down, not because she's over it, but because her identity depends on never admitting she's not. Freud called it ego armor. The unconscious wall we build to protect ourselves from collapse. When the pain is too raw to face, we don't process it. We freeze. We perform. You think she's free, but she's stuck in the same story she built to justify walking away. And now she has to keep believing it. Because to admit she left someone who loved her, to admit she traded real connection for a brief feeling of control, would mean confronting the wound she never wanted to touch in the first place. You think she forgot you, but she didn't. She just buried the part of herself that could still feel you. That's not power. That's paralysis. Because everything she avoided in you, she'll meet in the next man. And the one after that. Until eventually, she runs out of people to blame and has to sit in a silence that can't be posted away. She didn't beat the pain. She just hid it behind glow-up culture, fake empowerment, and curated detachment. But your pain, your ache, that's clean because you walked through it instead of around it. You felt it fully, didn't repress it, didn't numb it. And that's why you'll leave this different. She ran, you stayed, and that difference will follow both of you for the rest of your lives. You keep replaying everything, trying to read between the lines, trying to figure out if she meant it when she said, "I love you." But here's the truth, it doesn't matter, because the love you were looking for wasn't hers to give. Not fully, not cleanly, not in the way your heart needed it. She cared. In her way. But her way wasn't built to stay, it was built to survive. And when things got too real, too vulnerable, too exposed, she chose safety over soul. You keep asking if she ever really loved you. But the better question is, why are you still holding on to someone who already let go of herself? Because that's the real tragedy. She didn't just lose you, she lost her capacity to feel you. And in her attempt to protect her ego, she buried the very part of herself that could have grown. You didn't get closure, because she never opened the door all the way to begin with. But your closure doesn't come from her now. It comes from the one thing she never gave herself. Honesty. And you've already earned it by staying in the wreckage, by not looking away, by bleeding clean instead of hiding the wound. She forgot you because she had to. You remember her because you were real. And in the end, that's not weakness. That's your awakening. She didn't break you. She revealed you. You loved without a mask. You stayed present while she disconnected. You faced the pain she couldn't even name. And that's why you're still hurting, because you didn't run. You didn't lie. You didn't pretend it didn't matter. She didn't heal faster. She just buried it deeper. But you came out of this knowing who you are, even when it cost you everything. So stop waiting for closure. Stop asking if she meant it. Stop chasing someone who had to forget you just to protect herself. You didn't lose. You woke up. And if this opened your eyes, like, share, drop a comment. Because clarity doesn't come easy. But it comes to the ones willing to face the pain.